I am Sajeevan Balachandran, CTO of CreativeHub. Today I am going to talk about functional programming. What is functional programming? Execution of command is basically the object-oriented programming, but functional programming is evaluation of expressions. Here, if you are thinking about programming methods, it's object-oriented programming, functional programming, and procedural programming. When functional programming became in the code base, very few developers are taking the advantage of functional programming and they did the development in the code base. Meanwhile, JavaScript, Python, Rust, Swift, then all started taking the functional programming as a mainstream, and the time it came into the modern software development process, a lot of developers started doing functional way. The rise of functional programming, I would say currently that React encourages the developer do it on a functional way, even though it's not purely functional programming, because it takes a first approach to do the functional programming for the UI. Let's take the things like Redux. It's the one of the library. It's mostly now they are supporting the functional programming through hooks. This is the rise of the functional programming in the mainstream. It's not something obvious that like we should do everything on object-oriented programming. There are another method, it's available, which we can easily do. Here the thing is, it doesn't affect any of the environment, it doesn't affect the logic of the program. The functional programming will be a future of development. I would say it's depend on the open source developer. So the more library and more open source projects and frameworks comes, the functional programming will grow. I would say most of the framework and developers now taking advantage of functional programming, and they are started implementing to their development methods. Maybe in another few years, the functional programming will be taking the most of the code base, and most of the developer will be working on this way, since it has the huge advantage of like separating the better logic and better executions. So it has no side effect. That's a main advantage it gives as a functional program.